Shalom, this is Rabbi Alan, and we are continuing our series of Yeshua in the Torah. And this week we are again at a double portion, once again because we're in a leap year, a Hebrew calendar leap year. And so our double portion this week is Acharei Mot, after the dead, and Kedushim, Holy One. Leviticus 16:1 through 20:27. And the corresponding Haftarah portion is from the book of Amos, chapter 9, verses 9 through 20. Now, let me say that parts of this Torah portion this week are also used during Yom Kippur. And the reason is, during Yom Kippur, the special reading will be Leviticus chapter 16 and 17. And the reason is because this contains the instructions for Yom Kippur. And so it becomes a special reading during the feast and the holiday of Yom Kippur. And so chapter 17, I'm going to talk about that this morning. And so because we're sort of duplicating this, so to speak, one or two of the things that I talk about today of Yeshua in the Torah, I've spoken of before, but I'm going to try to put a little bit of a new twist on it for all of us today. And so, chapter 17 is a very, very important chapter. 17 speaks about the sanctity of blood, and God tells us about how important the blood is. And we know from actually so many of our weekly videos of Yeshua in the Torah, God brings up the whole issue of blood. God brings up the sanctity of blood. God brings up the blood sacrifices, because the blood is a key thing, because the blood is the one thing that will allow us to have our sins atoned for. And actually, I'm going to show you in a few minutes where it is the blood and the whole issue of blood that will show to us that Yeshua is in fact the long-awaited Messiah of Israel. And so here in chapter 17, God lays it out very plainly. And this is Leviticus 17:11. God says, "For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make atonement for your souls. For it is the blood that makes atonement for your souls." So God, could he make it any simpler for us? That the blood is for the life of our flesh, but also the blood is for the life upon the altar. There is the spiritual life because of our blood. And, you know, I say this all throughout the year, that God has this parallel thing going on. He shows us things in the physical to teach us the lessons in the spiritual. Well, he even does this with our blood. Our blood is used for a physical purpose, but it's also used as a spiritual purpose. So he says it's used for that our life of our flesh is in the blood, and he says that is for physical life. Listen, if we didn't have blood in our bodies, if we are injured and we bleed out our blood, we're going to be dead, because the blood carries our nutrients to the cells. Our blood carries oxygen to every cell, and so our blood is very important. And so the life of our flesh is in the blood. Well, God also tells us that he is giving us through the blood that he has created in our bodies. He creates this in our bodies. He creates it in every mammal. And so it is for our spiritual life. And that's why he says it's upon the altar. Now, all throughout the ages, there have been many, many, many people that have claimed to be Messiah. Both they claimed it and other people claimed them to be the Messiah. And so all throughout Judaism, there have been all of these false messiahs. None of them were ever connected with the death and the blood atonement. None of them were ever connected with being killed and bleeding. If we read about the histories of them, some of them died, or many of them died, but none of them, it doesn't show that there was blood involved in their death. And so the false messiahs in Judaism wanted to have Jewish people look away from Yeshua so much that they even said, because in Isaiah spoke of, in a sense, two messiahs to come, or Messiah to come two times. And so in Judaism, they started this traditional rabbinic thing that they said, oh, there are two messiahs. One is going to come to die for the sins of our people, and that will be Yeshua ben Yitzchak, and the second one will be Yeshua ben David, and he will come and he will rule and he will reign. The truth is, the Messiah would come two times. He would come, he came 2,000 years ago, and he would return. And then he will rule and reign. And so it is only Yeshua that suffered and died and bled. And so, a couple of scriptures before I end today. Isaiah 53:7 says that Messiah would be led like a lamb to the slaughter. None of the false messiahs, they never attributed their lives to be led like a lamb to the slaughter. And Isaiah 53:12 said that the Messiah would make intercession for the transgressors. That, in other words, he would intercede between us and God the Father for our sins, because it is his blood that would atone for our sins. And then Zechariah 12:10. Zechariah speaks a few times about Joshua. And Joshua in Zechariah's vision, Joshua's name in Hebrew is Yehoshua or Yeshua. And so Yeshua, God is speaking through Zechariah, and God says, I will pour out on the house of David, on the house of Israel, a spirit of grace and prayer. And then God says, they will look at me, the one they have pierced. Can you imagine? God is saying they're looking at me, he's God, but also God is the one that they have pierced. And then he says in verse 13:6, and one will say to him, the Messiah, who is God, what are those wounds on your hands? And then he will answer, those with which I was wounded in the house of my friends. And so Yeshua was killed. He was killed in Israel. He was killed with his people surrounding him. Many of them were accusing him of things, false accusations. And so he fulfilled Zechariah's prophecy where he said he was wounded in the house of his friends. Listen, only Yeshua qualifies for being the Messiah. Only Yeshua qualifies for being the Messiah that came. And only Yeshua qualifies for the Messiah to come. And so, until next week, this is Rabbi Alan bidding you peace. And if you like our video, give it a thumbs up. You can share it with friends and family, copy and paste the address, or go to the Facebook that you originally saw it. You can post it on your profile page. And then all of your friends and family that read your posts will be able to have access to this video, and they can listen to it if they want to. So yes, the thumbs up. You can subscribe below. There's a subscribe button, and you'll have access to my channel, Rabbi on the Fly. And you can look at all my videos that I put out. And also there's a little bell there, and if you click that little bell, it will notify you whenever I post one of my videos of Yeshua in the Torah. So until next week, this is Rabbi Alan, and I am bidding you peace. Shalom, shalom.